deck today. Going to do a review for a gun I've had about a year, just over a year. It's the CZ75B. It's a classic. I'm not going to go through the storied history. It's the most copied gun in the world. You've probably watched a couple other reviews and gotten all those tidbits. Just kind of want to talk about the practical bits of it, but here's my example. Like I said, I've had this for about a year. This is a, 2015 manufacture. It is the 75B in black poly coat. As I have it currently, it's dressed up with some LOK grips, lock grips, and polished to the action, put on the Dawson sights, and got the CGW SRS2 kit. So it's basically just a lightened spring kit and an extended firing pin and a high lift lifter arm that resets the firing pin block a little bit sooner. So it's a pretty basic action job, but it's got the trigger pulled down to about 7.5 pounds double and probably about 4 pounds or so single. But it's a good gun. It's good for competition. You can even use it for carry if you were so inclined, due to the fact that it is pretty slim. Technically it's fatter than a Glock due to the controls because of the thickness across the slide takedown pin on how the gun comes apart. But the actual frame and slide is a little bit thinner than like a Glock or something like that. Weight, it's significantly heavier than a Glock. It's about 35 ounces unloaded. With the plastic grips that it comes with these grips on, it's probably right at 36. It comes with 2 magazines, 16 round stamped sheet metal base plates. Manufactured by Metgar. You can buy the aftermarket Metgar magazines for about $22 to $25 or so, depending on where you source them and whether you get the 16, 17, or 19 round magazines that they offer. Very popular in USPSA, starting to be popular in IDPA as well. Can be carried hammer down or cocked and locked if you're so inclined through the use of the manual safety. There is no decocker, so lowering the hammer can be done a couple different ways. I've got a video on it. Check it out if you're curious on how you can safely lower the hammer on a loaded chamber. I've heard that referred to as the cowboy method, and works pretty well for me. What differentiates this from the SPO1 is the frame. There's a higher cut under the trigger guard and a higher upswept beaver tail at the rear of the gun on the SPO1. Also, the front of the gun is tapered on the 75, whereas this profile extends straight out and has forward cocking serrations on the SPO1. The barrel diameter is a little bit thicker. It has a heavier barrel. The outside diameter on the 40 caliber and 9mm models is the same. So the barrel is a little bit heavier on the SPO1 variants. The trigger mechanism on the inside is all the same unless you go to the shadow variants. And what that's going to do is you've got a firing pin plunger right there. That'll lift our arm, and the trigger mechanism lifts up and allows the firing pin to advance. And the firing pin is held in place by this roll pin. You can kind of see through there, see the daylight coming through there, similar to like an XD or something like that. So that's what actually retains the firing pin. On the firing pin block or non-firing pin block models, there's a stop plate similar to a 1911 at the rear that you use to take it down. So all in, the gun retails for about the same price as a Gen 4 Glock. When I bought this, it was, I want to say it was like $535, $540 plus tax. State of Georgia back in, I bought this in, I guess it was December of 2015. Yeah, 2015, December 2015. And it's been fine. As far as parts breakages and durability are concerned, it's storied for its reliability. There are 2 issues that are kind of known, and you really only get into these if you're a competition shooter and do a lot of dry fire. So the very first and most annoying is the trigger return spring. You can knock out the trigger pin by punching that pin, and then there's a torsion spring that it makes the trigger swing forward like that. So if you do a lot of double, like when I first got the pistol, wanting to get used to the double action, so I'll sit there and just run the double action over and over and over and over again. I broke my trigger return spring in about 2 weeks, but I mean, that was hundreds if not thousands of pulls a day, just sitting there like trying to figure out how to address the double action. That said, it doesn't doesn't have any issues because when you actually break the double action and then go to reset, the swing forward is about half of what it is in double action. So in actual operation, you're not wearing out the spring near as fast as if you're just sitting there cranking on the double action. The next kind of weak point, I haven't had this issue on this particular pistol, I've only got about 2,500 rounds through this, is the slide stops will actually break between about 10 and 25,000 rounds. And what's going to be the determining factor on that is how often you use the slide release to release the slide on an empty chamber, as well as just the gun in operation. I've not had that issue on this particular pistol. One of my competition pistols has shear to slide stop. And the way to know that shear to slide stop is if the slide starts locking back mysteriously and you're not real sure why. It's a good indicator that the leg is getting ready to shear inside the pistol. And don't try and just, He-Man it back into battery or anything like that. Just knock the pin out and replace the slide stop. So as a preventative maintenance on the pistol, if you're, I guess what I'll call a high volume shooter, 10,000 rounds a year or so, is just do a new slide stop every year and just do it that way. So at the same time, you might swap out all the springs if you're shooting that kind of volume. In its stock configuration, it's going to come with a typical blade coming straight out of the rear dovetail and a little front sight painted with luminescent paint. They're okay. I mean, they're durable. They do their job. They're kind of cheesy in my opinion. Kind of gives up a bunch of extra sight radius hanging off the rear of the slide like these Dawsons do. I prefer the fiber optic front because of my competition shooting. But all in all, it's a very, very comfortable pistol. The front strap is smooth. There's no texture on the front strap, and similarly, there's no texture on the back strap. The SP01 frames do have some tip of the hat toward trying to make it actually textured. It's not very useful for myself. I don't really need it. These grips are fantastic. They're a reasonable price. These are the bogeys, as I mentioned. You should get these grips if you really want a very, very aggressive. I've tried the Diamondback pattern as well, and these are significantly more grippy than that. They come in a couple thicknesses. They come in a thin, medium, and a palm swell thing that was going to replicate the profile of the rubber CZ grips that come on the SP01s. You only have a single-sided safety. You can replace it and get an ambi safety if you're left-handed, or you could just buy the stainless model, which comes with ambi safety. The frame on the stainless model also has the upswept beaver tail and the relieved trigger guard. The only thing that I would say that makes this pistol less suitable, though, there's two things. Less suitable for competition than the SP01 variant is it has the circle style mag catch. With the profile, it has some contour on the grips, the plastic grips that come on them. With that, I can't reliably drop magazines. I can't reach it. I have to have the thin grips to reliably go to reload quickly. And the other kind of concern is, if you can see in there, inside the mag well, there's no bevel on the frame. All the SP01s actually have that edge is eased. So, I mean, it's not a lot better on the SP01s, but it is better and it's worth noting. That said, holster availability, just because the SP01 is more prevalent in competition, I would honestly recommend just building up one of those or getting a Shadow purely for the holster availability. There's a lot of options out there with holsters special made for the SP01 Shadow or Shadow, and maybe aren't available for the 75B series, despite this being the originator, the original. The balance of the gun is very nice. It's more like a 1911 in how it balances. It's got the 4.6 inch barrel, so all of the weight, because it has a short dust cover, kind of sits around the trigger guard. It's kind of more it is kind of neutral, kind of a neutral balance. SP01's very kind of nose heavy, and you can feel them kind of want to point toward the floor as you point them, but this gun is very neutral. It's very fast.
So to talk about the finish on the pistol, this is a black polycoat finish. It's CZ standard finish. It's done a pretty good job standing up to the abuse of more or less daily carry for a while, and a good bit of dry fire when it was my competition gun. for about 2 months. I actually did shoot this exclusive in competition. The only real damage, you can see a little bit of wear at the muzzle from holstering, similar up there. I think there's another point right there, maybe right there, and maybe some points on the frame that you can see in person but that aren't super obvious in this video. Where the finish is wearing. The only actual damage is where I was trying to knock out the trigger pin with a steel punch and missed the hole and gouged the frame pretty good. And as I mentioned, on sights, pay your gunsmith, because that was me trying to drift the sights back and forth. And if you don't have a padded vise, let somebody who does mess with that. You don't want to do that. So as far as how you actually take the gun apart, it's a little bit different from most of the polymer striker fired stuff. So the slide stop lever actually acts as a pin, so you can see these notches right there. So you're gonna get an overhand grip, line the notches up, use the corner of your magazine and press that out, turn it over, lift that out, slide lifts off. You've got a short polymer recoil guide with a loose recoil spring. So if you're used to seeing captured recoil springs, you're like, oh, that's lousy. Actually, this is better. You can very easily change the spring to get the gun to cycle how you want it to cycle with whatever loader you happen to be using. The barrel, as you can see, 4.6 inches, cold hammer forged with 2 locking lugs at the top. I haven't cleaned this one in a while, so I'm getting fingers nice and dirty. It's got this little peanut shaped deal that the slide stop actually goes through, and there's the feed ramp. It has pretty good support for the cases. The one kind of concern is if you are a reloader who shoots cast lead bullets, there's not a bunch of free bore, meaning the rifling starts pretty much immediately at the edge of the chamber. So a lot of the profiles on a lot of the cast lead bullets, coated lead bullets that are available that are popular with competition shooters, you end up loading pretty short, or you can get the throat reamed on the barrel. Totally up to you. If you have a lot of guns you shoot regularly, then maybe it makes sense to get it reamed so you don't have to change your load, although my CZ load has functioned in every other gun I've tried it in, other than a really finicky 9mm range officer, which no surprise there, due to the cheesy magazines those ship with. So putting it back together is kind of the reverse. I'm just going to fit the barrel back in the slide. Recoil spring on the guide rod. Fish it in there. There's actually there's a pin on the recoil guide that will seat into the lug underneath the barrel. So we're going to put the slide back in the frame. See how the slide rides inside the frame? That's a nice feature. It keeps the slide weight down, so it ends up weighing less than any of its competition as far as like other service pistols are concerned. So now the gun's back together. You can see how that works. As far as upgrades you absolutely have to do to the pistol, there really aren't any. If you want to lighten up the trigger, you've got a bunch of options there. I'd recommend you check out, if you get a firing pin block model, go to Cajun Gun Works. They kind of specialize in those, and CZ Custom kind of caters to the no firing pin block. But you can buy parts for either gun from either one of those sites, and it goes pretty well. Get some grips you like. Part of the fun of having a steel frame gun with grips is swapping the grips out to something you like. So these are the lock grips, the palm, thin bogies. These are fantastic. Love them. Reasonably priced. The SRS2 from Cajun Gun Works I think is a good thing. You can do the polishing on it yourself if you're mechanically inclined, or you can send it off to them. And the floating trigger pin from Cajun Gun Works I would say is a must-have if it's a pistol you're going to shoot a lot, because the trigger return spring you're going to need to change out on an annual or semi-annual basis, depending on how much in a rotation you shoot it. Other than that's really it. I mean, I think sights need to go on every pistol. So well, that's it. Really like the CZ75B. I know it's less popular than the SP01, but it is a good shooting pistol. You absolutely could use this for competition as a main competition gun if you wanted. The only caveat and I've mentioned this before in my videos, is use snap caps if you're doing excessive dry fire, or you can buy, I think it's a number 83 O-ring from the sink department at Home Depot or Lowe's. You put the O-ring right there around the firing pin so the hammer actually falls on the O-ring. It kind of deadens the impact a little bit so it won't beat up this roll pin. What happens if you do that a lot, similar to the XD series, you do a lot of dry fire, repeatedly releasing that, the firing pin will eventually shatter this roll pin that goes through the slide, and it could potentially seize up the firing pin's movement. So if you're going to do a lot of dry fire, Len, I mean like, you know, every day for months kind of thing, then take precautions. But if, I mean, it's just for, you know, picking it up a time and again to dry fire, it's not going to be a big deal to just, you know, see, not that big a deal for occasional use. But if you're going to dry fire any gun, really, I would recommend using a snap cap, or if it's a hammer gun, maybe a type of O-ring. So, but that's it. That's my 75B. Like I said, it's a great gun, used for carry or competition. Very, very comfortable to shoot. If you like videos like this, please like, subscribe, share if you must. Appreciate all that. Check out my match videos if you like CZ related content. If you're looking for competition ammo, go on Facebook and look up my buddy Patrick Cook with Cook Ammunition. He actually loads 9mm minor loads that will, it's basically the load everybody uses in competition, so you can level the playing field with respect to the ammo and how the guns perform. So thanks for watching. See you next time.